Let me know when you record. Greetings to everyone. This is Debbie with Miss Chrissy and Mr. Mayo. We're coming back for a part two to continue on with our interview with Mr. Mayo.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayo, as I said before, you're just a history person. You've been through so much, but you're just a history person. Um, One of the questions that I wanted to ask you was in regards to your father. You said that when your mom and dad split up, you were living with your father and raised by your father. You said that he had a lot of spiritual music going on Sundays. So you grew up in a spiritual household pretty much. Is that right?
Right.
So
Right.
that kind of like led the way to how you are today, how God made your footprints
Sure.
as to how you are at this time.
Sure.
And when things started to go bad after you started Bowie State after the 2 years and your dad passed away, um, and I know you said you had to go back and take care of your younger brother.
Right.
Um, when that occurred, what did you do at that point? I know you had said previously that you did work for the post office, you worked for the annex, but after
Mhm.
that point in time, did you go? Who did you work for at that point in time?
At that point in time, I was working for a company called, I went to SMC, Science, Ma-
SMC.
Science Management Corporation, and it was located up on Courthouse Road in Arlington County.
Okay, all right, and that was enough to support you and your younger brother just to get through.
At that time, because it didn't really cost that much to rent the house back then. The rent back then, because we lived in it so long, growing up in it,
Mhm.
it was no more than about $129 a month back then. That's how
Oh my
much it was.
gosh.
But but it wasn't no good living conditions either. It was a roof
Ah.
over our head. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? It was not good living conditions at all. I mean, I remember uh, reaching up on the shelf in the kitchen over the icebox to get a can of something down off the shelf. And this mouse ran down my arm and like it scared me to
Oh
death.
my gosh.
So, we had mice in the house. We had mice in the house. I remember like up under the sink because we had a leak up under the sink in our kitchen where it had leaked so much water from the pipes being backed up, and my father had to unclog them all the time. The water that was leaking from the pipes, and see, we had wooden floors back then, and up under that sink, you could look down from the first floor all the way down into the basement because we had a basement
Mm,
back then. So
Wow.
it was just that
mm,
bad. It was
Wow.
just
mm,
that
mm,
bad.
mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My gosh. Well, you guys made it
And
through
then
it though.
we couldn't even lock the doors. Our locks back then, we had to take a butter knife, and like when we closed the door, the doors got frames on them. We had to stick those butter knives up in those frames to keep somebody from trying to break in the house when we were all in the house sleeping that night.
Mhm.
Mm, 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 mm. Can
Wow.
you imagine having a butter knife in this day and age trying to lock your house up?
I
Yeah.
know. I mean, hey, we had drug addict guys, and some of them will break in your house if they on drugs, bad enough to come in and just take what you had, your little you had. You know what I'm saying?
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm.
So I had a brother that was in drugs, and he had friends. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
go through all of that kind of stuff.
My gosh.
Mr. Mayo, you
And as
said,
far as my father, I remember back also, you always talking about my father and my mother. I remember times when my father would go to work, and while my father was at work, I remember after him going to work, this knock would come on our back door at the back part of the house, and it was this man that my mother was seeing
oh
while my
wow.
father was at
Mm,
work.
mm,
And
mm,
I'm
mm,
Yeah.
seeing
mm.
all this as a kid, all this a kid, you know what I'm saying? I'm just an innocent kid.
Yeah.
But, I went through all of that,
Yeah.
made it.
Mr. Mayo, you said that you had seven, it was seven boys and two girls, right?
Right. Hmm.
So how was your relationship with your siblings after your father passed? Because you said that you had to be a man. So were you
Right.
taking your father's place at that time and taking care of all of your siblings?
No, no, no. See, because I grew up in the house, we were a family when my mother and father was together. But when my mother and father separated, that separated the family. Half the family went with my mother and half went with my father. So, us boys that was with my father, we didn't have that much contact with our other siblings younger than us. Because my two sisters, period, my older sister and my sister up under her, and I want to say two of the younger ones went with my mother.
Mm,
So,
Mhm.
I
okay.
only really grew up with my brothers that was there in the house with me. But I contacted them. But as far as going to playground and hanging out with my younger brothers at my mother's, no, I didn't have that.
Okay. So how was your relationship with your brothers and sisters at this point?
Well, because of separation back then, like I say, you separate, when you separate and you don't have a household, the whole household together, the mother, father, and all the siblings intact. The same way my mother, father separated, in a way, you that separation comes in between and interferes with you and your relationship with your brothers and sisters. And it's like, we all out here now. We got a fence for ourselves. So
Right.
they did what they had to do to try to make it in life. I had to do what I had to do. And, when you're doing what you got to do and you're doing it so much, and like I said, I worked, I went to school, I worked, and
Right.
played sports, and that don't give me a lot of time to spend with my brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters was my teammates, my football players and my track
Mhm.
team members and stuff. Those was my sisters and brothers. And as far as father, I had my father. He was a good man and stuff. But when he wasn't around, my father was my coaches that was on my football team or my track team that took care of me because I was a good athlete.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mhm.
And they looked at
Definitely.
me. They looked after me. They made sure I got my grades, and they made sure that I got to college. And they encouraged me to push myself to be better than what I
Right.
was, and they shared a dream with me, and inspired me because they did the same thing. So I took on that dream that they had and took what I could and made the best out of myself.
Ah, that's wonderful. That is
And
wonderful.
even today, a lot of my elementary school kids I went to school with, a lot of my kids I went to junior high school with, and high school and college, we still have a wonderful relationship, and we still get together. Um, Once a year, and we go back to our homecomings and stuff like that, and we spend a lot of time on the phone talking to each other. And I don't know too many people that can say that they still have a lot of their friend mates from elementary school, junior high school, and high school. And I'm talking about blacks and whites that we still get together and have a good time.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness, that is a blessing. That really is. And you're right. There's not too many people that can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Because we
goodness.
all went through the struggle, we all went through the civil rights movement. We all went to segregated schools where we had to learn to love, and if we was gonna make it, we had to come, and we played on the sports, blacks and whites. We played on a team, and in order for the team to win, we had to come together and chill as a team and learn how to play with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
How I wanted to ask you this. You know how the movies today portray how things were with segregation back at those times? And sometimes they'll portray it to be so mean and nasty, or people spitting on you, or they won't let you drink water, um, and all of these things, or you can't go to a gas station to get your gas because it's a white gas station, they won't serve you. I mean, things of that nature. Did all that really happen? back at that time?
I remember back then in the 60s, some of the restaurants and things that we wanted to go to, like my father, he loved Chinese food back then. And it was this little Chinese shop that was on what we call Columbia Pike in Arlington. And it was next door to a theater. We couldn't go in the front. We had to go through the back. And then when you
Okay.
go through the back, you will see the signs that say blacks and, blacks back, blacks only or whites only. So, you know, I seen a few things like that. I didn't see a lot of that because, like I said, at that time, when I got to middle school, we had went through the killing of JFK, and stuff like that. And I think, because of the shooting of John F. Kennedy, and he was a Democrat, and most blacks are Democrats, you know what I'm saying? Him getting killed, then Robert Kennedy getting killed. I saw all those assassinations, and I saw the
Wow.
assassination of Martin Luther King as well. So a lot of that stuff brought us guys that played sports together. Now it was in the hallways, where fights broke out and stuff. After the football games, blacks and whites would fight and all that kind of stuff. But by me playing sports, I never was around a lot of that stuff like that.
Okay.
I remember also, like I said, I went to Wakefield High School. And I don't know if y'all remember a movement called Clashing of the Titans
Yeah.
with Denzel Washington in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yes.
that was T.C. Williams. We played against T.C. Williams. I played against T.C. Williams back then. That was when you was talking about segregation.
Hmm.
Now, yes, that was segregation times, but that movie that they portrayed with Denzel Washington and it wasn't all about the football team. It was basically about the segregation,
Yeah.
and T.C. Williams, the school that they made of the Titans, because the reason why it was so good and so big, they had took three schools in Alexandria, one called George Washington, in which they called GW, Hammett High School, and they took T.C. Williams and they combined them together. Now that was during the segregation time. Now they had the best of football players back then in the Northern Virginia area. Now over on my side, we had Wakefield, Yorktown, and we had WNL, Washington Lee, but they didn't combine us. So that's how
Mm.
T.C. Williams became a powerhouse. And not only that, their coach, Coach Boone, in which that's the part in which Denzel Washington played, he took his athletes to camp every year, football camp. So
Hmm.
that's how they got together. And a lot of that stuff that there was in the movie about them going to camp and stuff like that, all that stuff was real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a part of that too.
Yeah.
I remember, listen to this. I remember one day we had to play TC Williams. And the home team, which they came to our school, and the home team will always show up on the field first. We go out, we do our little calisthenics, and because it's TC Williams, the bleachers was packed with people. And we go out, we do our little calisthenics. And then when we get finished to clear the field for TC Williams to come out, we would hear this banging, on the side of the buses and all that. And then we would hear their band playing, coming through the night, coming over to the field that was lit up where we were at. And we wondering, what in the world going on? And these guys would come in when they came in, because it was so many of them, they came in, they walked out on the field and they walked from one end of the field goal, from one end to the field goal to the middle part of the field goal was 50 feet, 50 yards, 50 yards. It was 50 yards. And them guys came through that field goal all the way down to the 50-yard line, in which was the middle of the field, and they still hadn't finished. And that night we played them because we didn't have no more than about a 50-man squad, where they might have had more than that. We had to play both ways in order to play up against TC Williams. And which, could nobody beat TC Williams like that. They had too many players on their team. But I do remember those days, yes.
Yeah, you miss those days too, don't you?
Oh, sure. If I could go back, if I could just go back.
I can see the passion all, I can hear it.
Uh-huh.
I could go back, yes.
Well, one thing that they can't take from you, you got those memories.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, got those. And I try to share them with my grandkids. I got 4 grandsons, and I try to keep the little things that I got, the little paraphernalia and stuff that I got doing all that time when I was in sports, the certificates and all that around so that my grandsons could see it, even my granddaughters, and which could see it and inspire them to do something. I have 2 daughters, and I have both of them. When they were growing up, I enjoyed them tremendously. Even though I didn't have any boys, I had girls, and I had them in sports and stuff like that during that time because women basketball was just coming out, just getting started. And I had both of my daughters playing basketball, and my oldest daughter, she was the #1 point guard at
Oh,
what is the school down in Woodbridge? I can't think of the name. Uh, Lord, it's just on the tip of my tongue. Well, it's in Dale City.
okay.
She
Okay.
was one of the #1 point guards at that school down there.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, she was good. And I enjoyed my daughters.
Yeah.
I'm too old to enjoy any time with my grandsons, but I have I have one that's playing soccer now, so we spend a lot of time with him playing soccer.
Mhm.
Good. Very good. Now, you mentioned that this is going to be your 46th year anniversary. Can
Mhm.
you give some of the viewers some tips on how you and your wife have maintained to stay in a loving relationship for that long period of time?
Well, as far as me and my wife are concerned, I don't tell her what to do. I don't make her do anything she don't want to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm the type of person I'll walk away from an argument before I stand there and listen to it because so much I've been through.
Mm.
All the stuff that I've been through. If I let all them demons out, my relationship would be no good. So I try to walk away, and because of my spiritual side, and the Bible say, don't let the sun fall down upon your head at night. So me and my wife, we have always, come together when we have disagreements, and we ask God to forgive us and go on to the next day. So that's how we have been able to stay together for a long time. Plus, my wife, her mother always would have family cookouts, where they always had in family, in home cookouts where they gather around the table, what we call devotional time with the family and stuff. I didn't have that in my household, but I got it when I was with my wife and her family. And I brought that over into our marriage as well. So as my kids grew up, me and my wife, we always on the weekends, we would always have the family over and grandkids that my son-in-laws and stuff like that and other family friendly members, and we would cook and we have a good time. That's how we kept our relationship together even now. And plus me and my wife, we're very spiritual, and Chrissy can tell you that. My wife, she's involved in the choir. She's been a choir director as long as I've been knowing her, and every church that we've went to, she's been uh, a choir director, and I've always done all I can to be supportive of my wife in everything she's done.
True.
So
Good.
her being a choir director, I supported her in that, and I'm doing it today. This year, I just broke off from that and joined my sister Chrissy in helping her with what she's doing in the usher board in our church that we attend now. And that, just sticking together, me and my wife, we're not going to never let anything come between us because, in the Bible, it even speak about, when a man and a woman leave home, from up under their mothers and their father, they become one. You know what I'm saying? And it said, don't let nothing separate us. Don't let nothing come in between us. That's going to separate us. And that's the way we walk. That's the way we live. You know,
Right.
to death do us part. That's it.
Yes. Yeah,
Very inspirational.
they have a strong bond. Sister Mayo, Brother Mayo, they good people, really good people. And Sister Mayo, she's something else. She's a good,
Yeah.
yeah. But she got some long, pretty hair too. I'll tell you.
She try. She try to be the boss, but she's not the boss.
Don't let us get you in trouble, Mr. Mayo.
I know.
Look, she in another room.
You know, she come with that Louis.
No, she's a good woman. She's a good one. She's never asked me, you know, a lot of women these days will, you know, get on the husband. I want a house. I want a car. I want rings. I want diamonds. I've never had that problem with my wife, you know. She never burdened me down with getting her this or getting her that. But in my living and being with her, I've tried to give her everything I possibly could within my power.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yes, it is. Definitely.
That's wonderful.
Now, go ahead, Chrissy.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, you had mentioned earlier about you have the 50th anniversary of Bowie State University.
Coming up in June the 29th.
So how you feel about that?
Well, I weren't expecting it, but you know, all that, I mean, the achievements and being able to play sports and being around people, all that's from God too. You know, it's a blessing, you know what I'm saying? And that's another achievement that I can put up on my trophy shelf to show my kids. And it's being sponsored down in Maryland. And at that time, there will be like a big gala, you know, where everybody come in. It'll be a sit down dinner type situation where all of the 1973 sports athletes will come together and join and be inducted into their 50th year year of playing sports at Bowie State. So it's going to be a big thing. So it's going to be a big thing for my family and my friends. You know, they always giving me respect and stuff like that for that. And even it's encouraging to them. And, you know, by them being my friend, you know, my friends, you know, they cheer me on to it, you know, so it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
And
it is. It definitely is.
And even in church, you know, I used to take little kids, you know, to sports events, basketball games, because I still go to my high school basketball games, some of my college football and basketball games. And I would like to have the privilege of doing that with some of the kids, because kids need that. They need that. They need that support. They need that. You see what I'm saying? To be able to get out, not being stuck up in the house all the time, but at the same time, with them being there and doing those things, they need the support of their family, mother and father being there with them. I'd rather for them do that than to be in the streets.
Exactly. Yeah, most definitely. So how was it? You said you had two girls. Did you ever wanted a boy?
Yes, I did. Every man wants a son. Every man wants a junior. But hey, like you say, God holds the cards. I don't hold them.
Yeah, that's true.
But like I say, I love them just the same. You know what I'm saying? I love them just the same. And I treated them just like they were boys. So
right.
I had good times with them. You know, they played girl sports, and I enjoyed it.
That's wonderful. And then now you have some grandsons. So
that with my daughters, because they played girl sports, me and my wife, we would go out into the community and we would get all the girls off the street and we would go to the girls and boys clubs and we would uh, develop uh, teams for these black girls that my daughters knew. They are friends, and we would go into the boys and girls club and we would have our own girls basketball team that competed against other girls.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, because of what me and my wife did with those girls back then, we still have relationship with all of them too.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
You
wonderful.
know, you are really doing a legacy. You and your wife. You're doing a legacy. So
Yeah.
that will always be here, and they will always
Yeah.
think of you guys. Because I think that's a great thing that you're doing, and what you're doing. Of course, you can't do it without God, of course, but
No,
it is a great legacy.
yes, it is. Yes, yes, yes. And I look back and I just always said, well, God, what's my next adventure? What's my next challenge? Where are you going to take me from here? You know what I'm saying? You know.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
so Mr. May, I want to ask you, so when your humbleness and came along, what age were you when you started to be humbled as you are?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I came to had a black and a white mother and had to live in a black community, whereas that, my mother was, well, her and her sister was the only, because her sister lived next door. They were the only light skinned people like themselves in that community. So me going to school, I didn't only catch hell from hearing it from my black brothers and sisters, but I went to school and heard it from my white peers as well,
Mm-hmm.
In black community, they going to school. You got a white mom. Boy, you got a white mama. Hey, don't nobody talk about mama.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah.
insult to talk about mama. You know what I'm saying? So I was in a lot of fights and stuff like that because, my mother and stuff. And then going to school and your white schools, you had your little fights with the white guys that didn't like black guys and stuff like that, so
Gotcha.
fought it from both ends. But when I started playing sports, when I started playing football, and I had to play up against those white guys that called me all kinds of names and them black guys that called me all kinds of names. I say it was open season. Now this is when I can beat up on these guys and don't have to worry about getting put out of school
Right.
any.
Okay.
Correct.
Got you.
By me
Correct.
playing, by me playing, I got a lot of respect. So
Okay. That's
those
wonderful.
those guys that were my enemy became my best friends.
That's good. That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You played it smart too. You was able to get
Yeah.
back at them doing it the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
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 Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, we have greatly appreciated you sharing your story with us. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the viewers about your life, that we haven't asked you?
I mean, hey, you can ask me anything. Let's see something else that I drew a blank right now, but I do remember even back during them times in the '60s, we didn't have ice boxes back then. We had places that you call ice house. You get your ice.
Yes.
And I don't know if you remember that. And then the washing machines back then, they were the kind that you had a roller on the top and you had your spin cycle and you had to take
Yes.
clothes out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep,
if
my
you
mama
wanted
had
to,
one.
Uh-huh.
and you always had that old scrub board too.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So these kids, they don't know what we done been through.
Mm-mm.
Got it so easy. And then a lot of times, we had to, because we didn't have washing machines in the house. That's when I was living with my father and brothers. We had to walk about a mile to the wash and dryer place to wash and dry our own clothes. So
Mm.
you know what that was like, dragging big bags of clothes to the laundromat and hearing your friends and stuff driving past you, hey Mayo, and all that kind of stuff. And I got this big old sack of clothes on my back. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
but it was all good. I learned
Yeah.
from it. know what I'm saying? And I remember times that back in those times, when you walk the street at night, as far as being black, you will always have these white people driving past you,
Oh
calling
wow.
nigger and all that stuff. And they would never mess with you when you was in a crowd. It was always when they caught you by yourself.
By yourself.
That was some coward stuff.
Yeah,
Coward.
that's where it was. So
Mm-hmm.
God brought me through all of that, and I thank
Yes,
God.
he did.
Do y'all remember?
Mm-hmm.
You all remember the Good Humor truck that used to come
Yeah.
through town?
Yes, the
I
ice
mean,
cream truck.
I mean the one with the one man driving with the humor bar on it was a white truck, and it
I
had a
don't
good
think I
humor
remember that
bar on it. And in order for him to give you your ice cream, he had to step out of the truck and open up the ice cream box on the side of the truck.
Oh
And get
no.
you don't remember that?
No, I don't think
one.
we didn't have that.
Do you remember, or do you remember the Mr. Softy truck that used to drive around that always would play the music and you go get your soft ice
Yeah, I
cream?
remember Mr. Softy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. Softy. They got some good ice cream too, Mr.
Oh yeah, but I took my son's soccer last week. Me and my wife went to one of his soccer games, and that same truck, not the Softy, but the other ice cream truck came up that sell the good humor bars and stuff like that. I said back then we could get a ice cream sandwich or a good humor bar for about 10 cents. These same 10-cent bars are going for $5 or more. I said,
Yes.
wow, it's crazy. It's crazy. So that's just the times that we're living in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And my one thing
Unfortunate.
also is that kids, go to school, get your education, be all you can be, because in this day and time, may take 2 college degrees to get an education in this day and time. And in order to survive and live a good life, peace, you got to have that money job.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayo, we got a couple more minutes left, but I wanted to say, well, ask you if
Mhm.
you could give an encouraging word to someone who may have lost a loved one,
Mhm.
just like you did in your teenage years, and maybe may have to step up to the plate.
Oh,
What type of advice would you give to that person to say it's okay, you can make it
well,
because you were
well, one,
successful, you survived.
well, one thing, stay spiritual, stay connected to God, stay connected with Jesus Christ. Uh, if you have a support group, stay connected to your support group, your family, your friends, and things like that. And I've lost both my mother and my father, and I grieved very hardly when my father passed. And when my father passed, I knew it was time to put on his shoes and grow up and be a man. Because my father used to say things when we were young. You never miss the water till the well run dry. And you say to yourself, man, what is he talking about? Well running dry. Well, what he was telling us back then, in which we could not comprehend, just like the things we can't comprehend about things that's been said in the Bible because they're parables. And we got
Mm-hmm.
to think about it. And what he was saying, he was that well. And
Mm,
that well where we got our bread, and that well was where we got our food, and that well was where we got that shelter. And he was all of that. So after he passed, I came to realize that now it was time for me to man up, get a job, go out here and make it in life and be what I wanted to be. And not only that, me grieving through those times. And I tell anybody this, if you're going through a grievance time and your mother and your father passed, I'm going to tell you the same thing that happened to me, what God did with me one day. God told me to go in the bathroom, and I went into my bathroom, and he said, look in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror, and Spirit told me, what do you see? I said, I see myself. Spirit said, no, what do you see? I said, I see myself. He said, no, look deep into the mirror. Look in your eyes. What do you see? I said, I don't see anything but darkness. He said, no, what you see your mother and your father looking back at you. You are your father's offspring. Your father was your father. Your father was your father's father was his father's offspring. and you are your father's offspring, and your father lives inside of you, and the relationship with you and your mother and father will never die. So that's how I look at it. I right today, when I'm looking at my kids, I know my mother and my father through my eyes, and my lens are looking at them, and they're watching me as I travel on my journey and what God wants me to do. And my father always say, if you're gonna be somebody that you can be proud of, be somebody that he could be proud of. And that's what I've been doing all my life, trying to be somebody that my father was still living here, and even playing the sports. I did that for my father because I wanted him to have somebody when he's around his friends and his cronies that he can say, hey, I got a son that played football. I got a son that went to Bowie State University. I got a son that was inducted into the Bowie State Football Hall of Fame. I got a son that this year is getting ready to be inducted into his 50th year anniversary football Hall of Fame. And that's a great achievement. And
Yes.
still being able to live and still looking toward my 75th year and knowing God has a many more set for me. So I have
Yes.
more stories to learn. I got more stories to tell as I live in this world. So my encouragement to everybody is just stay encouraged. Don't give up. Take time with life, because I'm gonna tell you, once you get out of high school, time flies.